All right, y'all, here's a question. What can you find everywhere on the internet, Amazon, eBay, for Gen 1 Sequoias, but you can't find instructions in any way, shape, or form on how to install? Seat covers. That's right. These super cheap and totally nice microfiber, which is leather, but really it's just pleather, seat covers, total replacement covers for the seats in Gen 1 Sequoias. There's just nothing out there for the 01 through the 04. I've got a 2001 Toyota Sequoia. First year they made them, first year the Gen 1s. I was out there on forums looking. I was on the Gen 1 Facebook group, and one guy had just installed one. He actually wound up communicating with me all through the night one night and early the next morning to help me get the first one on. I figured out everything not to do on that one, so I was able to get the second one on pretty easily, and I filmed every part of the process. So this video is designed to basically be a walkthrough that you watch while you do yours yourself. I'll throw a link to the ones that I bought, but there's like 60 different variations of the exact same thing, all most likely from China, on either Amazon or eBay. So check it out. Let me know what you think. If you like it, please give it a like. If you have questions, throw them in the comments. If you want to get into a deeper conversation about these things, then come find me on the Gen 1 Sequoia Facebook group, and let's get started. And one more thing. This is the first video I've ever shot as far as like a how-to or a walkthrough, and it's the first video that I've ever edited or tried editing, so please be gentle. All right, now let's get started. The tools you're going to want for this job: screwdriver and or screw gun. I'm a big believer in not doing anything by hand that you can do with a power tool. You just want to be really careful when you're putting screws into plastic. Honestly, even the little fine pitch screws that go into the metal, just be really careful with it. You're going to need a number 12 and a number 14 socket, some trim tools, prying tools. I've got a Christmas tree puller here, various screwdrivers, also mostly just for prying. You're going to want a razor knife and a bunch of fresh blades, because you'll go through probably 2 blades for the seat cushion and 2 blades for the back. You're going to want 2 pairs of needle nose pliers. I found the long ones really helped out quite a bit. And these little mini channel lock looking guys, some flat pliers work nicely, and the secret weapon, the hog ring pliers, and I will show you how to hack the system with those. So here's what a lot of older Sequoia front seats look like. The leather gets all shiny over time, and eventually it starts to crack and then ultimately split, like you can see on this one. Seen a lot of videos of people patching them, but I don't really think that's the best fix, and it doesn't look the best when you're done. So with that said, I'm going to show y'all how to pull out the seats and recover the bottom and the seat back so that it will look ultimately like this. First thing you got to do is you actually have to remove the seat from the car. So you need to pop off these 4 bottom trim pieces here, here, and in the back, here and here, using your hands or a trim tool. And then you can unscrew the 14mm bolts underneath. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pull out these plastic trim pieces. You can usually just use your hand. They just stick on with these little plastic tabs that go in. And then unscrew the 14mm bolts that are hidden underneath. Yes, that's right. If you happen to get in a car crash, you are being held in place by 4 14mm bolts, and that's it. Now, to do the back, it's a whole lot easier if you've got the seat slid all the way forward. So that when you pop these trim pieces out, the bolts are more accessible. Oh, and by the way, you will find fun things hiding out under there. The seat is now free, except potentially tucked a little bit under some of the carpet. Now that you've got those bolts out and you have slid the seat all the way back again, you're going to want to reach under here and pop out this little trim piece that's under the front of the seat to access the two wire harnesses so you can release those. To release those two wire harnesses, go ahead and tip the seat back and look under here. Now, the black one, which is the electrical, is just an easy push tab. The yellow one, which is for your airbag, is a little bit different and it can be tricky. You need to slide this little white tab in here backward this way, because there are two little springs in here that keep it pushed into place, and then it will release. Just like that. Now be careful. On the other one, I let this whole thing explode on me and I lost one of the little springs that sits down in these two little round cylinders in here, and it took me about 30 minutes to find it in my gravel. Now that we've got those two wiring harnesses out, the seat is totally detached and we can pull it out of the car. Quick side note, once you have the seat pulled out, might be a good time to clean all the nastiness that you generally can't get to with the seat in. Most of your seats are going to look a whole lot worse than this underneath. I actually already vacuumed and cleaned the car so that I could shoot this video and not look like a total slob. All right, here's the seat out of the car, sitting in the garage. 4 bolts, 2 wiring harnesses later, and we are ready to start disassembling this bad boy. Now, when I got my $115 leather seat covers from Amazon, they came packaged up like this, super tightly wrapped. And so it led to quite a bunch of wrinkles in there. I think it's a good idea generally to take apart the packaging and lay them out in the sunshine so they'll start to relax a little bit. Now that we've got them out of the packaging, I just want to show you what you're in for. If you go ahead and flip the seat bottom cover over, people talk a lot about hog rings and hog ring pliers and what a pain in the butt the hog rings are. There's actually a pretty good hack that makes them kind of easy to install, but the hog rings are a little metal ring, whoops, used to pinch this little rib of plastic. It's metal, of course, on the OEMs, but on these cheap Amazon versions, these little plastic ribs will attach down into a little piece of metal in the seat cushion itself, and that keeps all of the seams nicely tucked in to look like the factory original. Now, first things first, we're going to want to take apart as much of the plastic trim and the buttons on the seat as absolutely possible to get to the inner workings so that we can take the back off of the lower and so that we can remove the entire cushion piece off of the frame. It makes it way easier. So the first thing you want to remove are your controls for your power seat. I like to use a plastic trim bar and just give it a little twist toward the end, and sometimes it will rock it straight off like that. Next, you need to remove the 2 plastic pieces of side trim. They each have a little numbered 2 very fine thread Phillips in the bottom of them, so you want to unscrew those first. Carefully set all your little screws. You're going to have a bunch of them when you're done, in one safe place where you're not going to kick them and lose one. With those 2 screws out, you want to take off these pieces of side trim and kind of just stick your finger in there and pull away from the seat out towards you where the seat belt is. and then carefully pull up. It's got these little toenails here that hook on the edge. And pop that guy totally out of the way. Again, set it with all your other pile of parts in a safe location. And then there is one big round clip here and then a small plastic clip that interfaces with the trim piece on the back side. So go ahead and give it a hard pull to get that Christmas tree to pop out. And then be a little more gentle when you do the back. Now I forgot, there is, by the way, the only coarse threaded screw in this whole project right here. It's easy to remember if you've got all the other screws that match. They have a very fine thread pitch, one very coarse thread pitch. That goes right here by the seat belt. So take your screw gun or your screwdriver to number 2 Phillips, spin that guy off, and just to show you a comparison of the thread pitch of that guy versus the others, if I can get it to focus there. I don't know if you can really see that, but yeah, much coarser thread pitch on just that one because it screws into plastic. The rest screw plastic into metal. With that screw out, pull this piece off. Carefully slide it over your seat belt. By the way, I strongly recommend cleaning all of these guys with a brush and dish detergent and water before reinstalling, because oftentimes it's really gross. Shop vac is also probably a good tool for this job, because what you find under the seats, especially in a 22, 23-year-old car that you haven't owned for that long, is going to be pretty nasty. Okay, to pop off the trim piece on the other side, again, there's a big Christmas tree back here, and we're probably going to have a little wiring harness on this side for the lumbar support that I didn't have on the other side that I did earlier. Yeah, you can actually see the wires back there. There you go, just work it apart. And you can see the wiring harness in there that we're going to want to disconnect. Quick side note, after giving it a look, that wiring harness looks a little wonky, and I really don't want to mess with it, so I'm actually going to undo these 2 Phillips screws there, and just pull that whole piece out and let it hang. Okay, just unscrewed those 2 screws, and this whole piece just flopped down onto the ground. I'm going to go ahead so that I don't lose these 2 screws, and I'm going to put them right back in the holes they came out of, just loosely, so that I'm able to find them later when I'm putting all this back together. Another quick side note, you'll notice the Christmas tree popped out of the little clip in the trim piece that I just pulled off, whereas the first one popped right out. If that happens to you, don't panic. Just take your little trim bar and carefully pop that Christmas tree out. A lot of this stuff can be very brittle because it's very old. Of course, the tool I didn't mention at the start was a Christmas tree puller, so yeah, good thing to have also. Go ahead and take that guy and slide it right back into the retention clip on your trim piece. Once you've got those 2 side pieces of trim off, and I want to apologize right here. I promise I will do my best to remember to shoot all of these in portrait mode. I just had a bunch of landscape clips in between what started out as portrait clips. Like I said, never done this before. So anyway, sorry about the odd outcome of the video. If it does come out odd, you got one more number 2 Phillips right here that you need to unscrew. When you unscrew that, you're then going to slide this bottom trim piece forward, because there's a little clip in there that faces like this, and this guy slides into it this way. So undo this number 2 Phillips here, then slide this whole trim piece forward before you pull it away. right? Because you don't want to break off this guy that slides in right behind here. Now be careful when you're pulling this piece of trim right here off. There are little clips top and bottom that hold it in place. Right there. You don't want to break those off. Now we get to remove the seat back with 4 14mm bolts, 2 on that side, and 2 over here on this side. It's a big beefy bolt which you can set down here in your pile of stuff to keep it safe. And you just do the same thing on the other side. Timber! And with those out and the back released, we'll get to separating that out of the way. All right, this will be our first glimpse at some hog rings. A lot of people say, what's a hog ring? Well, it's these little round metal rings that pinch a bar in the bottom of this top piece of upholstery to this bar in the bottom of the other side, where it wraps around a central axle, if you will, that runs from side to side and keeps basically, just by upholstery and cushioning only, this top seat back attached to this bar that's on the bottom frame. Now the way to remove hog rings, and again doing this solo so I apologize, just go ahead and grab them and give them a good twist and they will twist out of place. Do not try and save these, and do not try and do this project without hog ring pliers. That is the #1 complaint that I've read about in forums online. Just buy the $35 pair of hog rings. They will save you hours and hours and hours of frustration. There's 1, 2, and 3 back here. This is going to be a tricky angle. Boom. And now you can see the hog rings are off. There's 3 of them on there. And here is the back of the seat back upholstery. Here is the bottom of the seat back upholstery. So we're going to want to push this out from under this central axle and be really careful. You got a wire over here, a wire group that's attached into this last piece of side trim, and then another one over here. So just be careful when you're pulling all of this apart, not to put too much strain on anything or break anything. Again, it's much easier with 2 hands, but if you see what I'm doing, pushing this all out from under here, I'll quit filming and use 2 hands to push it right out and then show you what it looks like after. Okay, got it all pushed through with 2 thumbs, which is a heck of a lot easier. And now it's all free of this axle that runs across the back. So we can carefully pick up the seat back and kind of lay it back here out of the way. Again, carefully watching the wires that are attached in these trim pieces here. So now that we've got the seat back freed up, we're going to need to go around to the front and peel off the seat cushion. To do that, we're going to have to remove 2 number 12 bolts on the bottom, which you'll see down there, and another one over here. And actually, what I think I'm going to do differently on this one that I didn't do on the other one to try and remove the entire seat from the frame is remove these two bolts up here as well. My man Heath, who was kind enough to communicate with me all last night and this morning, said it is a lot easier if you just remove the whole seat from the frame. And after having done it, I'm going to tell you he's probably right. Man, it's hard to film and screw at the same time. I'm sure that's what people in the adult film industry say too. All right. So we'll take our four bolts, put them safely over here in our pile of hardware, and get to work removing the seat cushion. So it looks like to remove this seat cushion, we're actually going to have to pull a couple of these little wire wrap clips here, and it looks like maybe right over here off, and I think that's going to release our whole seat frame, and that's going to make this whole job a heck of a lot easier and safer on the skin on the back of your hands and knuckles than it was for me last night. All right, just use the Christmas tree puller to pop this guy out. Now I got this guy over here, which I'm probably also not going to be able to film because it's kind of a two-handed job, but maybe I got it. Hey, all right, look at that. So I believe now the seat cushion is free, except there is a clip holding it to the bottom of the wire on the seat bottom itself. And looks like this harness is also attached with a little clip. I just like to always be really, really careful with these so as not to break anything, because if you do, those parts can often be hard to replace. Uh-oh. We got two more down here. One there and one over there. So I'm just going to pop those. Use your imagination. Okay, now I just noticed if you really want to pop off the whole seat cushion, which will make this whole project so much easier, you are going to have to release this wiring harness from the back of the power seat controls. All right, fast forward about a minute and a half, and I realized if you carefully lift the seat up without putting too much strain on this wire here, you can kind of get around behind it with a screwdriver and twist the screwdriver to push the tab and pop that wiring harness right out. And now this is going to be so much easier than what I did last night. I'm super stoked, and you should be too. Now, a quick note while we're looking under here, I think it's really good to see what's going on for when you put the seat back on. There are these little metal tabs right here that hold it in place after you roll the plastic under the lip that I'm going to show you here in a little bit. I wish I had done this way on the passenger seat, and it looks totally fine, but this one's going to be absolutely dialed. So I'm going to take a screwdriver and pry these all down and fully out of the way so they don't get deformed. There's 3 here, should be 4. Oh, look, there are 4 here in the front of the seat and 1 on each side. Also, it's good to get a lay of the land and remember how all the fabric is supposed to lay. The new seats don't match exactly. These little clips right here on the sides aren't the exact same length. So it's just good to see how it's supposed to lay underneath before you go taking everything apart. And there is a reason I am folding these all the way out of the way. And you will understand what that reason is when we go to reassemble this bad boy. So stoked. This is going to be so good. All right. With all of our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because remember there's one under there, 6 tabs carefully folded down. You can take the front of the seat and just kind of peel it outwards towards you. Again, super hard to do one-handed. So it'll be much easier for you after you watch this video or while you're watching this video to do it yourself. Oh yeah, get it. All right, front's released. These guys, it's a little easier to peel from one end, I found. Kind of peel it, pull it towards you this way. And then you can just peel it right off. I'll show you again. Kind of push it toward, and then work your way to the back, peel it off, and then the very back, it's just plastic. Get your fingers under there and roll that up and over. And hooray, our entire cover is detached from the seat, but it is still attached to the foam underneath. And this is where we get back into the hog rings. A quick parts note before I peel this guy off. Do you see that there's a little plastic piece stitched in by the opening for the power seat controls? I'm going to show you what to do with that. And hopefully, if this works out like my one did last night, we're going to be able to reattach it. But we're going to do it with super glue because I don't really sew. And while we're speaking about this piece of plastic in this location, this is the only part of the seat when you're pulling this cover off that actually has any controls or electronics near it. So you want to be really careful when sliding this side off and over. It actually might be better to do it last after you get the front peeled back because you might have a little more room to work. Okay, so I used 2 hands to get a corner pulled off, and you can see what I'm doing here is I'm just basically rolling this inside out as I remove it to help us get easier access to those hog rings. And just like I said, if we do this side last, it's easier to pull this out and away because we got some more space to work. All right, so to remove the hog rings, again, we've got our seat cushion turned inside out as best we can anyway. There's gonna be 3 hog rings down each side and then 2 in one bar that goes across the middle. So peel it back to where you can find the first one. You can see it down there. Same as the other ones. Grab and twist. Go. And with 2 hands, it would have been out already. So I'm gonna use 2 hands, grab, twist, pull it out, and then I'll be back. Now that I have some help from my lovely assistant, if you can peel that back, you'll see there's just a hog ring in there holding this metal rod that runs down the cushion to the metal rod that runs down the seat cover. Grab it with your needle nose, twist it, and it'll pop right out.
Okay.
Then you want to do the middle. Grab it, twist it, give it a little wiggle, pops right out. Then you want to do the other side, front and middle. Peel the foam back, grab and twist, comes out. Middle, grab and twist. And now we've got to do the two middles right here and here. So same deal. Say it with me. Grab and twist. And then there's just one more in the back on either side, holding us in place. One. That sound is kind of awful. Grab, twist, and that yucky old cover is a thing of the past. All right, so this little piece of plastic, I don't honestly know if it's really vital or not, but we're gonna do our best to get it back in place because that's what Toyota did, and I think those engineers are pretty smart. So, if you've ever sewn, as I've already mentioned, I don't, you've heard of a seam ripper. Well, my seam ripper is this razor knife, and just go cut real quick all of the seams in this thing and then pull it off of the back. Just a quick hack, once you get an edge started, then you can just kind of peel it back a little bit and just cut right underneath it, and it'll pull all the way off. If y'all just heard my girlfriend in the background talking about a crazy spider, has anyone seen a red spider? That thing is gnarly.
Cardboard box.
So now it's all free, and this was the back side that's going to be facing the inside, so I didn't clean anything up there. Clean pretty much all the threads off of here. I'll clean it up a little bit better because I don't want anything getting in the way of the bond when I super glue this guy into place. All right, so now we're to the reassembly phase of the process. I've got all of my pliers over here. I've got some extra hog rings. I've got my razor knife and extra blades. So the first thing I'm gonna do here is, as I mentioned before, I'm gonna go ahead and roll the seat bottom cover inside out. And when you do that, kind of right at the seams, it puts all of your rails that you're going to attach from the seat cover to the metal rails in the seat cushion right down where you want them so that you can get your hog rings on them. So there's a hack for the hog rings that I figured out last night, and I was pretty pleased with myself. It only took about 6.5 hours of trial and error. But what you do is you squeeze a hog ring from your pliers mostly closed, and then grab it out of there with your hand. Now you'll notice there's one side that's curved in more deeply than the other. What you're gonna wanna do is, this will save your life. Take the deeper bend and hook it. Actually, now that I've got two hands because I have an assistant, grab it with your long needle nose and hook it around the bottom rail in the seat cushion, okay? You don't have to hold it. The foam will pretty well keep it in place, but whenever you're ready, go ahead and just check your spacing on everything. These will slide forward and backward once you have them attached, but go ahead and squish your foam down, grab your ring, and hook it right over the rail on the bottom of your seat cushion. Then just take your needle nose, push them in there and carefully squeeze your hog ring closed all the way, and bam, Bob's your uncle, locked and loaded, factory fresh, tight and right. So the middle being aligned correctly is what tells you that you're spaced correctly front to back. So yeah, realized that just now after I put one of the back ones on. Last night I spent a lot of time messing with it to try and get the spacing right. You can still slide it around if you've only got 2 of them on, but just make sure you get the middle on there to help figure out your spacing front to back to get a good even stretch over the fabric. So partial squeeze, pull it off, grab your pliers and put one down, hook it over the top. Oh, and you also want to check your spacing left to right. I did not right there, so I'm actually gonna push this one off. Gonna get this guy kind of evenly spaced in the groove here. And give it a grab. Grab your hog ring. Hook it over the top. And then you can, if you like your spacing, which I do now, go ahead and just pinch it all the way closed. All right, so now that we've got our 8 hog rings on, the 3 up each side and the 2 in the middle, we can start to kind of roll this thing into place the way we're going to want it. Now the cushion, by the way, is only attached to this metal frame by the seat cover. So it will want to walk on you and run away without you if you don't clip it into place. The back, just like on the other one, just clips straight on. And I noticed on the one last night that you may want to, there you go, get it started just by pushing it down with a pair of pliers or a flathead screwdriver, just to keep everything somewhat in place. Now, we'll roll the rest of it into place around the cushion. And then we're gonna need to cut for our powered seat controls. Just squish the foam right in there. There we go. Now these guys, you just want to pull it kind of tight around this corner. Same deal, clip those on both sides. And now we're going to pull all of our fabric forward, because this is where we actually fully roll it all the way over and around, and that's what pulls it tight. Okay. So now that we're getting everything stretched into position, we're going to need to trim for our controls over here. And what you want to do is basically cut way tighter than you're going to want it for starters, just so that it doesn't damage your controls by putting too much pressure on them. As you get this thing stretched into place. Once we have it stretched as tight as we want it, then I'm going to notch out for my little Toyota engineered trim piece, and make sure that we've got our 1, 2, 3 tabs accessible for the sake of popping in the exterior trim piece for our power steering controls, or our power seat controls. All right, so once I stretched everything tight, you basically just take this edge and you roll it over, which you can see that I've done over here, and I reattached this clip right here. And same on this side, I just rolled it over. Once it was pulled tight and attached that clip, you roll it around the corners, and you can see down here, I've got that first clip there. This one here I already put on. Those guys over there. So I'm just gonna finish rolling and clipping the bottom. Then I'm going to put the wiring harnesses back in, screw it back into place, and the bottom seat will be done. All right, so after you've rolled the edges on, if you push really tight, you can grab these little clips and start to roll those up around the edge of it. And I just found that using the side of the needle nose works great to help you pinch them back down and keep everything in place. All right. And that, my friends, is that. Now, we need to trim back this material right here just to expose that hole, this one down here, and this one right here where our trim piece goes in. And I'm actually going to try, without reinstalling that back piece on this one, I'm just going to notch out specifically with a very sharp razor knife the material around my holes for the clips and see if that installs as tightly as I think it probably will. And you can already see that my knife is getting a little bit dull from just a few cuts that I've made on this stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and swap out the blade. Don't try and cut this stuff with a dull knife. It doesn't work very well. I've already used both ends of this one, so I'm gonna toss it and get a freshie. So back at it, just find, yeah, see how much easier that cuts? Just kind of feel where the hole is. And notch around it. There we go. And then we've got our bottom hole down here. So this is the one I want to be careful with not to cut back too far. I might just start a little bit lighter and do a little more once I have a good idea of exactly where it is. So I'm gonna just test this out and see if I can get everything clipped in, but I don't want this leather to be pushing on any of my controls unnecessarily. All right, so let's grab our trim piece and give that a whirl. I think that looks pretty tight, guys. So now we can go ahead and pop on our other control knobs, making sure there we go, putting them on right side up. Great. And now we're ready to reinstall our seat back onto our frame. So these things, like I mentioned earlier, are probably going to be pretty nasty. I'm just going to take this opportunity to use a little brush and clean out some of the smeg that's built up in here over 20 some odd years. Ew, gross. There we go. Before I reinstall the seat. Now, like I mentioned, this thing's gonna be pretty wrinkly if it's just come out of the packaging like mine has. We will have one more opportunity to stretch the back tight before we put it in our screw brackets back here, but it will relax over time as long as you've got it as tight as it needs to be. So we're going to over here, come back and reattach our wiring harness for our powered controls. The white part faces out towards you as you're installing it. There we go. And push it in till it clicks. You hear that good positive click. And then you can set it back in place. Just like that. Once you've done that, go ahead and tip it up on the end. Grab your number 12 socket. And your 4 number 12 bolts. Now, the first 2 you're going to put in are actually the 2 up top, up here toward the front of the seat. Because those don't go through any fabric whatsoever. And these brackets kind of move around a little bit. So you may have to tip the seat to get them to line up properly. There we go. And we're gonna slide this guy in here. There we go. All right, so you can see if you kind of squeeze and shimmy the seat around, notice I'm pushing the cushion a little to the right. You can get it to line up eventually. It's kind of a pain in the butt. But once you get it, you got it, it's good. Now, the bottoms are where the real magic happens. So go ahead and while you're under here, after you get the top two on, put all your little wire harness clips back in the holes they came out of. So that one was right there. You got this little plastic clip that was across the bottom of the wire on the seat. And this guy right here is over here. Now, you've got fabric that you're gonna need to pull out of the way to help him find his home like Happy Gilmore. I just needed to pull the seat back a little closer to me so that I could get this guy reinserted in his hole right behind this little motor right here. And then there is one more back here that we had pulled out again, very well marked right there, that we will pop back in. And now all of our wiring is reclipped to the bottom of the seat. Now we got to do a little bit of cutting, and the way we want to do that is we're going to want to stretch this fabric. There we go. Stretch this fabric forward to make it all nice and flat. Line up this bracket, then pull it out of the way and feel with your finger to find where the hole is. Then take your razor knife and you're gonna cut that hole. All right, so we're gonna slide this around here. And there is a hole that we're gonna have to bolt this thing into. You need to find it with your finger. Once you've got this piece slid up, whatever, up as far as it'll go. You'll take your finger and then you can see it right there where I pushed it in. Take your razor knife and you're gonna go ahead and notch it out. This is the one where homeboy said he just notched it and blew right through it. So I'm gonna see if it works. All I did was I cut a little cross pattern into the fabric there, right where the hole is, just to help make sure it stays stretched tight. Under here, this is where the articulating head is not necessarily better. And I think that's pretty well lined up there. So we're gonna, now that we've got a good mark, boom, put that in and pull it tight. So now, to do the top, we're just gonna peel the cover off. First thing we gotta do, there are 2 hog clips, hog rings here. Say it with me, pinch and twist. And the other one is right here. There we go. And remember, in a few minutes when we're going to put the new one back on, this does indeed go under this wire right here on this side, and same over here on this side. So now, whoops, we're gonna take off the armrest by folding the entire little armrest flap over all the way to the top. Then take your pliers, just to make it easier, run right along the contour, open it up, and we've got a number 14, I believe, bolt. Now, there is a little plastic collar on here, a little washer that slides all the way down in there that holds it tight and gives it a little tension. Make sure that doesn't fall off. Set that aside with the rest of your parts and keep peeling. Now, the easiest way to do this, I found, is sit here with this into your belly. And it's easier if you undo the wires from these clips down here, just so you got a little more freedom of movement. And just squish the cushion down. And peel this right up. Now, just like the cushion on the bottom, we're gonna wanna roll this inside out so that we get access to our hog rings. We should make this a drinking game, and every time I say hog rings, you gotta take a drink. Ah, there we go. All right. Now, 2 hog rings in the middle. Say it with me. Pinch and twist. Pinch and twist. And now there is Velcro on these guys, like hook and loop, and there is the loop side attached to the back side of the replacement cover. I didn't think the aftermarket was gonna have that. It totally does. It's awesome. You are gonna have to cut this piece of fabric that is sewn in. So I'm gonna have to find my razor knife and cut. And cut. And roll it up to the top. Now, something I did wrong on the other one that caused me a lot of time and heartache. I did not pull the headrest off first. I'm going to show you why that's important. Inside here, you've got these clips that you have to squeeze so that you can release. And that's the only reason we have these channel locks, by the way, so that you can release the 2 inserts for the headrest. I spent the better part of an hour this morning wrestling with it because I didn't pull because I did not pull the metal headrest out of it first, and these guys can't push in if you've got metal rods for the headrest sitting in there blocking them from going in. So remember, pull the headrest out before you try and squeeze these and pull them through. Don't know what's happening with this guy right here. I'm going to have to convince him to jump out. There we go. Just a little bit of convincing, and it pops right out. I will try to remember to throw a little quick picture video of these tabs from mine this morning after I got done smashing and cutting them. The back is off. All right, so same thing with the new one. You want to kind of start with it inside out because you want to roll it down like a sock. So start with it even and inside out like that. Basically roll it all the way to the little plastic bar that you're going to use the hog rings on. And then make sure you're putting the front side on the front. Just slide it down. All the way. And remember, you're now potentially dealing with Velcro. So make sure if it's binding that the Velcro is not catching up high. But you also have to make sure, and that's why I like to roll it inside out, that the Velcro is right in line with the little Velcro strips on the inside. You can also, when you roll it inside out, put your hands in here and really pull super tight on it. So, hog ring hack. One. And two. Facing up. And then just make sure, again, that you're staying centered. Might be good to press the Velcro down a little bit here just to make sure that everything is where it needs to be. And grab the top of your hog ring. Hook it. Oh, goodness. My bottom came out. So now, there we go. Hook it. Make sure you're equidistant on both sides. Hook it. And reach in. And pinch closed. And I'm really gonna get these all the way closed as tight as possible because since you've only got 2 hog rings in here, you don't have as much to pull this cover in tight to the foam. There we go. Okay, now just roll it down the rest of the way. Careful over the bolt here. You don't want to tear anything. Just keep pulling tight all the way down. So once you've got it all the way down, and you can feel it's tight everywhere, go notch right around this bolt. Ooh. Below this bolt is the hole for where your armrest goes back in. So find your way over to where you can see where that plastic washer has been rubbing up against it. You want all of that to be free because you want that plastic making contact with the metal. I like to grab this with short needle nose. There we go. Okay. Now, we can go ahead and put our armrest back on. You can see that plastic piece will fall out, and it acts as a bushing, and it keeps everything tight, so we don't want that to happen. You can also see that there's a little track in here that goes there. So, line it up. Take a 14 millimeter. Yeah. And it's nice and stiff, sits right where we want it. Squish your zipper back together so that when you're zipping it, it doesn't put too much stress on that little guy. Roll the cover back over, and now we're ready to put it back together. Okay. All right, so once you stand it back up, it's actually ready, believe it or not, to reassemble onto the seat bottom. So we're going to take our big 14 millimeter, if you can see that right there. We're going to just start that one by hand. And that one. Then do these two on the other side. Again, you may just need to wiggle it around a little bit to make sure it finds its home. Now reach under both sides. And now we have to push all of this fabric back underneath. Including that flap right there. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our hog ring pliers for the last time. Pull this nice and tight. Pull the one from the other side nice and tight. You can see what happens when you pull those. You put tension right here on the corners, which you want to keep the foam tight. And this is the only time in this entire project you can actually use the hog ring pliers the way they were intended. But I still found it took several tries to get it to work that way. And it actually pinches it right on in place the first time. That's totally lucky. I couldn't get one to work the first time earlier. Pinch it tight. We're good to go there. Same on the other side. Pull it up. And by the way, it's the innermost hole. That's where it was hooked before from the manufacturer. So that's what I did again, just following their design. Oh, look at that. Both of them worked first try. Sick. There we go. Just to make sure those are super de-duper tight and secure. And then just tuck those up. Now we got 3 hog rings to do here, and we're done with the hog rings. So this foam under here, make sure that goes under your axle, if you will, again. And then grab here we go. Grab our fabric, and now all we got to do is we have to attach this back flap to this rib on the back flap to this rib down here, and we are done with the seat back. Now this is the time to make sure you got it straight. So check your seams and make sure they line up. Now mine luckily do, because I knew the trick about lining up the tops of these seams when I did this in this video. I did not know that trick this morning when I was doing this, so it did not come out straight the first time. I had to play with it a little bit. But you can see it almost looks like a regular fully assembled seat again. Pull the center down and just hold your 2 ribs together. And again, you can use the hog ring pliers just like the manufacturer intended. Oops. We're just gonna give those a little extra pinch. I feel like that one kind of slipped out a little bit. And then one over here on the right. Just kind of toward the end. It doesn't have to be exactly at the end. Uh-oh, are we out of hog rings? We're shooting blanks. Let's try that again. If your hog ring stabler jams, go ahead and pre-squeeze one a little bit like we were doing with the hack on the seats, to where it's just open enough to get your ribs in there. Grab your two ribs. Make sure that they are both fit through your hog ring. And then once you get it lined up, then squeeze tight. And then the last one over here. And there's your seat, ready to throw your trim pieces back in and bolt it back into the car. So just a quick glance at what we have left. We've got the visible door side trim piece to slide into place and then put one Phillips head screw in. And then we've got these two side trim pieces that cover the two hinges, if you will, of the corner of the seat. All right, so here are my three remaining parts, four technically, but this one actually fits into this one. So ultimately it's 3 points. I've got the rest of the plastic trim. Since I'm on this side anyway, I'm just gonna go ahead and start with the seatbelt. Notice I cleaned these with a scrub brush and dish detergent to get them nice and clean. I am back solo again, so I'm gonna try and film and do the rest of this stuff one-handed here. All right, so remember I've got one Christmas tree push clip in there, but then I've got all these little bits to line up right here, and it looks like they're pretty dialed. Christmas tree kick. That worked. Now, oh, there we go. So line these guys up and pinch them. And remember, by the seat belt was the one coarse threaded Phillips head screw. So if we look at what we've got left, it's this guy right here. We're gonna put that in and screw it, but not over tighten it, because we don't want it to strip out. Clearly the last person that put it in took a little bit of plastic with it. That'll happen pretty quickly with these. So we're just gonna screw in our one coarse threaded screw right into here, but we're not gonna over tighten it, because metal on plastic will strip out pretty quickly. Once we've got that guy on, put this guy in and kind of toenail it in from here. Then push these guys all into place. All right. Spin around to the back. We got another one of our fine threaded Phillips head screws that we've got to get put in back there, down here at the bottom. Make sure, whoops, that these two plastic pieces, these trim pieces, are lined up the right way. These are clearly not. I'm gonna have to use two hands, line these up and screw this in. I'll show you what it looks like in a second. Boom, like magic. All nice and tight, screwed in beautifully. That's this side done. Time to go to the other side. Now remember, this piece of trim that we've got to slide backward into place, this one goes underneath this piece, so we've got to put this in first. So we're gonna get it roughly lined up and slide it backward until we feel that front clip catch. Then we're going to take another one of our fine thread pitch screws, and screw it in right down into this hole here. It's gonna actually go right there. Voila, that one's done. I felt underneath here to make sure that the clip was aligned correctly. Lines up just about with the end of the rail right there. And the screw goes back in. Now it's time to remember where we left our screws. Screw the lumbar support guy back in, and then push this clip in, line up the tops here, put our last fine thread pitch screw in the back, and this will all be reassembled. All right, I got both screws in there. I'm gonna line up my front clip. Gonna line up the top, and I'm gonna have to use two hands to push it all together, I think. Unless I somehow magically just got it to line up. Oh, which I did, that was magic. And I've got one more fine threaded screw to put in right here. And all of our trim is back on. Boom. There is our recovered seat. Now again, I may take a hairdryer or a heat gun to get this to relax a little bit, but after a hot butt and or back sits on it for a while, it'll look really good. I think you saw at the very beginning of the video the other seat, and that's just after one night and day of it. But now I'm gonna go ahead and install the headrest. So, to install the headrest, make sure that your fabric is all pretty evenly where you want it to be. Again, I got old foam and new pleather, and so I'm gonna really try and get the Velcro stuck in that side. Make sure the Velcro is stuck in this side. And I'm gonna come up here to the top and feel for where those two little square holes are. Once I have found them, put a little divot in there, put a little divot over here in this one, and then I can take my razor knife and just put it right in the hole and notch them out perfectly. All right, fast forward 1 minute and I got two holes cut right in the tops of the square tube where the inserts go for the headrest. Now I just have to push those in place. It is a good idea to make sure the headrest is facing forward and that you've got your little adjustable side on the correct leg and facing the correct direction. If you screw this up now, you cannot fix it without taking everything apart and taking the entire back off. So, better to just measure twice, cut once, dry fit it here, and then have them be ready to pop right into the holes. But just like before, take out the actual headrest itself before you push it in so that the little clips down here can actually depress and fit totally down into the square metal tubing. And voila, we've got a fully finished driver's side pleather seat replacement. All we've got to do is go put it back in the car, reconnect the two wiring harnesses in the front, one for the electronics, one for the airbag, attach the 4 14mm bolts, and put back in the 4 plastic caps, and we are good to go. All right, so now that we have her back in, just need to hook up these two wiring harnesses. So we're gonna tip the seat back and we're gonna reach up here and put the yellow airbag harness on. You gotta actually line it up, slide the little white tab back, and then it pushes forward right into place. Got the wiring harness for the main electrical, push that in till it clips, and carefully Set her down into place. Now we're going to reattach our 4 bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do our 2 in the front first, and then we're going to slide the seat all the way forward to do the ones in the back, and that'll be that. Line up the tabs for the trim. See, that makes a nice seamless piece across the front. Then we've got this guy here. And his friend there. And that's the front. Now again, to get access to the rear, let's hope this actually works. Oh yeah, got all the wiring hooked back up, right? Slide it all the way forward, far as it'll go. Move the back up right a bit. Go around to the back. Put in your next 2. Just having to push on that a little bit just to line it up right. There we go. And then we will blast them. One clip. Again, one-handed is much harder than with 2. There we go. All right. And we've got our little trim pieces installed, and that, my friends, is a wrap. Now again, this one just came out of the packaging. It's pretty wrinkled. This one I let sit out for a day in the sunshine when it was warmer. It's already much better, and as you can see, the seat itself in the back is already much better versus the one I just installed. Don't panic. It will relax. All of these wrinkles will go away. The more you sit on it, the more you sweat on it, the more you're hot, the more it's hot outside and you stretch it out, the better it's going to lay. That's that, my friends. Gen 1 Sequoia, as I understand it, 2001 to 2004 seat cover replacement with the super cheap Amazon and eBay pleather seats. So there you go, guys. That's how you recover 2001 to 2004 Gen 1 Toyota Sequoia with leather, microfiber pleather seats from Amazon or eBay. If you have any questions, post them in the comments. I will put a parts list in the comments and my complete tools list for the job. Big shout out to Heath Condi. He was texting with me late into last night and again early this morning because he had already done it. It was actually his post in the Gen 1 Sequoia forum on Facebook that caused me to decide to do this in the first place. Hope this helps. Yeah, give this video a like if you like it. If you want to see other videos and you can't find them anywhere else on the internet, then let me know and we'll try to get it figured out and get one posted. Thanks, guys. By the way, ain't she a beaut? Just got the 2-inch Old Man Emu lift installed, and I got 33.5 by 11.4 inch tires on there. I think she's starting to look all right.